I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and this Monday I'm going to discuss a topic that I don't think we've actually touched on before. We've done quite a few discussions about different chassis systems and different stocks. But one thing that we have not really got into discussion about before is the grip angle on the different systems. Different chassis, different stocks have different grip angles. And the question is really what kind of grip angle is going to work best for what you do. Now the stock in front of me here, this is a Hogue overmolded stock. This actually is the one that came on our Remington 700 AAC SD budget precision rifle. Now I've talked about this stock in particular before, and the fact that the barrel channel up here, the fore end of the stock is extremely flexible. In a lot of situations you will end up with some contact of the fore end on the barrel, and that's not really a good thing for precision. When we got this stock off our rifle, we found that it was able to really perform a whole lot better without the detriment of the stock. It does have aluminum pillars, so there's one benefit to it, but other than that, it's really not a good stock. But what it's going to allow us to do is talk about the pistol grip angle on this. And you notice on this stock, the pistol grip is really swept back quite a bit. Pull the trigger guard off of this rifle or the stock and drop it in here, and you can see where the trigger is. When I come up here to grip it with my hand is really swept back. My pinky is way back here, almost halfway in the middle of my palm. So what this does is when we address the trigger, instead of getting a nice 90-degree trigger finger and a straight back pull on the trigger, we end up having to get some kind of weird angle, and we end up having to drop our hand down, and if you can see on the back side, I end up having to float my fingers down here to get a straight back pull on the trigger. This is fine if you're shooting from a bench or a really well-supported position where you don't need this hand to hold on to the rifle, but it's really not a good thing if you're in a field position and you need to throw this rifle up and get a really quick shot. Now, what I do feel the angle like this works well for is in those field positions. I think a stock like this points really naturally and really quickly when you have to mount it. That's why a lot of shotguns you'll see have this kind of angle in the stock. I really feel that it helps them point a whole lot better. But in precision rifles, we're not so much worried about how quick we can shoulder the rifle like that. We're worried about making sure that we can engage that trigger perfectly each and every time. So these stocks are really not that great, besides the fact that this stock has way too much drop in the comb. You really can't get a good cheek weld with a magnified optic with this guy. So let's talk about a slightly different stock, kind of the same design here though. This is a Bell & Carlson M40 style stock, and you can see it's got pretty nice worn finish on it. This was on my Remington 700 for quite some time. This stock actually went to a couple of different sniper schools and went through a couple of different competitions with me, and it worked really well. It felt at home to me when I got back into precision rifle shooting because it mimics the layout of the Marine Corps M40 stock, the Macmillan HTG, quite a bit. Obviously, it is not built like a Macmillan HTG. It doesn't have the same durability as the Macmillan HTG, but it also comes in at a much lower price point. It's got a full aluminum bedding block in there, so when you torque your rifle into here, you can really get all the performance the barreled action has to offer. Now, one thing you will notice comparing the Hogue to the Bell & Carlson M40 is we still have this curved pistol grip, but the angle is considerably less. So now we're bringing the hand down and forward, and we're able to get a little bit closer to that 90-degree trigger finger. Now, if you still go up here and grab the whole stock and toss your thumb over the wrist of the stock, then you end up getting that upward pull again. But if you do like I did most of the time, and I just kind of drop my hand down and put my fingers on the front of the pistol grip, now I can get almost a perfect 90-degree engagement, and I float my thumb back here on the wrist of the stock. And this worked really well, and you can see the paint worn off up here from where I float my thumb all the time. And what this also allowed me to do with my thumb anchored here is that after I fire the shot, I can just blade my hand up to hit the bolt and cycle the action. So it's kind of a good mix between an all-around position, field rifle, but also gives you the benefits of getting that natural trigger finger placement if you're floating your hand when you're shooting from more stable positions, bench, prone, etc. So that one's kind of in the middle. You'll notice this one still suffers from the same problem with the low comb, and we've got a Bradley B24 cheek piece on here to raise it up a little bit. It's a really nice Kydex strap-on cheek piece. This guy is great if you have an agency gun where you can't modify it in any way, shape, or form, and it gives you a whole lot more rigid cheek than some of the strap-on nylon cheek pieces. So again, much greater improvement over something like the Hogue or the Tupperware stocks that come on Remington 700s if you're getting one of the SPS models. This is a great upgrade for that. However, it still isn't perfect. Now, there are some guys out there that shot the M24 or the old M40A1s that, again, they'll feel at home on this stock, but I think there's room for improvement, and that comes into the next setup we have. Now, the next guy we have here is the rifle that we just got back from Southern Indiana Precision. We had them Cerakote the action and bed it into the stock, and this is a Macmillan A3-5 rifle stock. This thing is really top quality as far as fiberglass stocks go, and it has a lot of features built into it. It is kind of the, in my opinion, it's almost the pinnacle of fiberglass stocks. When we're still talking about traditional stocks, this I think has just about everything that I could possibly want in a fiberglass rifle stock. Now, it doesn't fold, but a lot of applications that's really not necessary. What I built this rifle up for, which is 308 limited competition, I don't need a folding stock. This guy's got a 24-inch barrel. It'll fit in most cases. It'll fit in most rental cars, and I don't have a problem dropping it into an Everly stock pack or any kind of scabbard. So don't really need the folding stock there. Now, what we have here, when we talk about the pistol grip section of the stock, we have kind of a nice palm swell on the side of it, and we have an almost vertical front face on this pistol grip. So if I come in here and I just stick my hand around it and really wrap my thumb around the wrist of the stock and wrap my fingers around the front, I have almost a horizontal trigger finger. I have a little bit of downward reach to get to the trigger, but with just a slight modification, if I float my thumb over here and just bring my hand down a little bit, now I have almost a perfect straight reach to the trigger and a 90-degree trigger finger. Shooting this stock, when I'm going for those super precise shots, I usually won't wrap my fingers around the front. I'll float my fingers on the front of the pistol grip again, and that allows me just to set my hand up absolutely perfectly. But if I'm in an unstable situation, I can reach up here and grab it and have my hand at a decent angle. I'm not all ginked up. My wrist isn't all crazy position. It's a really comfortable stock. It's got plenty of room for slightly larger hands to stay on the grip. You don't end up with fingers hanging down off the bottom, which can be a problem in some stocks. Now this one has a fully adjustable comb. It actually locks in really well, so I can put that comb wherever it needs to be for the optic. And I haven't set it back up since we got it back from Southern Indiana Precision. I just dropped the optic on it and threw the bipod on so we could do this video. I'll get back in here and dial this back in and put my O-rings back where they belong. A little tip for you on these kind of cheek pieces: throw some O-rings on there. That way if you have to pull it off, when you drop it back on, it'll stop at the O-rings and you'll get it dialed right back in. But this stock really has everything that I could possibly need in a rifle stock. It's got adjustable length of pull with spacers. It's got an adjustable cheek piece. It has an almost perfect pistol grip angle for me. And because of the way it's designed here, I can float my thumb. And when I talk about floating my thumb, instead of wrapping it over and locking that thumb down, I let my thumb sit up here either on the tang of the rifle, that little arrow back of the receiver portion, or on either side of it, depending upon the specifics of what I'm doing at the time. And again, that just gives me a little bit more freedom of where I'm placing my hand and where I'm placing my fingers to get it perfect for my body position at the time. And again, that gives me some leverage when I come up to hit that bolt handle and be able to run that bolt fairly quickly. When we start wrapping our thumb around, now we've got to bring that thumb back around and then come up and grab that bolt. And I prefer to do bolt manipulation like this when I can, because it disturbs the rifle a whole lot less than just coming up here and grabbing the bolt, because then it wants to torque the rifle over. So that's one of the reasons I like to float my thumb, and I really like chassis systems or stocks that give me the freedom to float my thumb there. So that's about it on the standard stock type rifle stocks. Now let's talk about kind of a totally different path on chassis systems. Now this guy here is an Mdt Tac 21, and we just got this set up on the AAC SD. I haven't even really got a chance to get it out and get the system zeroed in, but this chassis system utilizes AR style buttstocks and AR style pistol grips. And one of the last types of chassis I wanted to talk about are those that use traditional pistol grips. Now, a couple of things you'll notice with the pistol grip, we're back to kind of that rearward angle, and this is almost more of an angle than we had on the McMillan A35. So you get that rearward cant there, but the benefit is the grip is usually brought down. So even with the cant, your finger is still directly in line with the trigger. So you really get on there and you get that nice 90-degree pull straight to the back. You get that horizontal trigger finger and you can really get on there just perfect. We've got a mag pull, one of their Mo grips on here, and it's the one that's got that tacky rubber on it. I'm forgetting offhand. I think it's the Mo Plus. But it has a duckbill on it, so it really sets my hand up and lets me get in there and get almost that perfect 90-degree trigger finger. I think I need just a little bit more reach forward to get a perfect 90-degree, but it gets me enough that I don't really have to worry about it. One of the drawbacks to these pistol grip style chassis, though, is when you start working the bolt. When you've got the bolt down here and you've got your thumb wrapped all the way over onto the left-hand side of the rifle, in order to run the bolt, you're going to have to disengage the hand completely and then come up and blade it. Now, you do have this groove kind of thing in here on the MDT that the bolt slides in. So just grabbing it real quickly, I can tell I can use that as a ledge to blade my hand and unlock the bolt. But usually you don't have that, and you're going to have to come up and just grab the bolt and rip it on your own. But having to come around, come off, run the bolt, and then come all the way back down here may slow you down just a little bit. Now, just a tiny bit, but that's one of the things that you want to think about. I don't have the ability to float my thumb. If I try to put my thumb over here, it doesn't really feel natural. You can do that. I've seen a lot of guys that will get up here and, again, put your fingers on the front of the grip and just kind of float the whole hand and do this thing. This is fine if you have a fairly light trigger, because there's nothing anchoring your hand keeping it from going forward. So if you've got a sub 3-pound trigger, this will work fine. If you have a heavier trigger, this is not the best thing for trigger control. It makes it really difficult to get that super fine trigger control without moving the rifle around. If you've got a 8-ounce trigger, it's not going to make a difference, because any kind of pressure at all is going to set it off. So I prefer on these, if I'm running a heavier trigger, to wrap my thumb around the back, or at least have my thumb set on the back ledge, so I have a counterbalance to pressing the trigger to the rear. The buttstock options on these are pretty plentiful. The chassis systems that use AR buttstocks, there are a ton of AR buttstocks out there. We just happened to throw a Magpul PRS on this guy, and we put MDT's butt pad on here, and the system kind of works pretty well set up like this. As I said, we haven't actually shot it yet, but the ergonomics feel good for me with the rifle set like this. We don't have any problems with the comb because the way the MDT is designed, where the bolt comes back almost into the buffer tube or in line with the buffer tube for the stock, that stock can be really nice and high, and we don't have to really stack up cheek risers to be able to get proper cheek weld. If you're accustomed to an AR-15, then this kind of chassis is going to feel at home to you. It's a little bit heavier because there is a lot of aluminum here wrapped around the steel receiver. I'm not sure that is really necessary as far as structural integrity for the rifle, but it allows you to put everything on here, get everything lined up, and it really allows you to get that high cheek weld. So the pistol grip has benefits, has drawbacks. Of course, the big benefit to having a modular AR style pistol grip chassis is you can go through a ton of different AR pistol grips and find the one that fits you just perfect. Now, as I said, we have the Mo Plus on this guy. Usually I will run Ergo Tactical Deluxe pistol grip that has some really pronounced palm swells and has a really nice texture to it. I really prefer those grips on AR style platforms, but we had the Mo Plus laying around, and for some reason right now, I don't know if all you guys have been taking my advice on those pistol grips, but the Ergo Tactical Deluxes are a little hard to find. They keep ending up out of stock everywhere we go, and we couldn't get a Flat Dark Earth pistol grip to go on the chassis. I know it's kind of a sad thing that we picked the pistol grip because of color, but sometimes when you're shooting photos, etc., you want things to kind of match up. So that's why we have the Mo Plus on here instead of our favorite Ergo Tactical Deluxe. But that's about it on chassis. What it's really going to come down to is it's really going to come down to what feels right for you. You really want to try to make sure that whatever you use, you can get that good 90-degree trigger finger, which will maximize your trigger control. And you want to make sure that your hand is comfortable on there. If you're shooting a rifle that's mainly from the bench, then your hand being able to grip the back of the rifle is not a really great concern. You're usually going to use your support side hand to support that stock on some kind of sandbag or some kind of rest. However, when you shoot tactical style matches where you're shooting from barricades or you're moving from place to place, there are going to be times when you need to support the rifle with that strong side hand while you're operating the trigger. And in those cases, it's really a good idea to have something that you can get a tight grip on and still get your trigger finger lined up where it needs to be and get that straight pull to the rear on the trigger. So it's really going to be a matter of trying a bunch of different stocks. One of the reasons I really suggest, if you guys have the ability to, get out to some of the tactical rifle matches out there, because most competitors are really pretty cool about, at some point, maybe not when they're getting ready for a stage, letting you get behind their rifle and taking a look at what they have. So it's really to your benefit to get out and take a look at a bunch of this stuff if it's something that you can't afford to have several different ones and then pick whichever one you want to keep and sell the rest. So that's about it. If you guys have any questions about chassis systems, please leave your comments in the comment section below. What kind of chassis system or stock do you run on your rifle and why? I really like to hear why. We've gone through a ton of different stocks and chassis here. We seem to get a new one every couple of months to try out. And what it really ends up to be is it ends up to be what you like. What feels good, what looks good to you, what has all the features you want. And there's a lot of crossover. I really hesitate to ever say that there's a right or a wrong in a chassis. I go back and forth between chassis systems and standard stocks. So I really want to hear what you guys prefer, what you like, and what do you look for in a chassis system or a stock. So please let us know. I'd love to hear the discussion in the comments down below. If you like this video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, get out and shoot!